Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and
Hi there.
welcome to Conservative Leaders Forum. I know that those of you that were here last month, every seat in the place was full. A lot of our crowd are election workers. They're election judges and election workers, and they're working tonight because they're doing early voting. So they may show up here in just a few minutes. We'd like to thank every one of you for showing up this evening, and we'd like to ask Jim Strickland to lead us in prayer.
Would you would please stand? I don't see any cowboy hats to take off. Lord God, we thank you for the people who come here tonight who care about a country that was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. These are the patriots that are going to help bring our country back to having a culture that allows us to worship you, allows us to follow your principles, allows us to keep evil from our city gates. We ask, Lord, that you give us wisdom this evening, give us open eyes and ears and mind to the things that are going to be talked about tonight that are so important to keeping not just a godly and righteous country, but a country free from crime and evil elements. We ask, Lord, that you help us, you direct our path, you shine a light on the things that need shining light on, to bring them into the public square, to expose them as being wrong. We ask, Lord, for wisdom and discernment in choosing the right candidates who stand for your principles. And we ask, Lord, for everyone here to leave motivated by the words that they hear tonight. We ask this in our Lord's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please remain standing, and we'll pledge the allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'd like to call on higher eyes to give us the Texas flag.
Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. And we're acknowledging the videographer tonight. You're going to receive a copy of the recording of this section. So, this is the agenda, or was the agenda. It changed up a little bit, but anyway, we'll go forward from there. And these are the individuals that were our speakers. We've also added one additional individual. Normally I do this at the end, but well, tonight's Katie Rodeo night, and there's 10,000 people at the rodeo. And the speaker at that rodeo is Jack Cagle. So Jack will come here after he finishes speaking there, so we put him at the end. But last month I showed you some of these things, but because it's going to be in a recording, you'll be able to see them again. It is a list of items that successful people are using to build our conservative group. How many of you are signed up for the Lincoln Reagan dinner? We've got several of you anyway in here. This is a fantastic opportunity. It also happens to be the main fundraiser for the Harris County Republican Party. And you can see the outstanding speakers that we have lined up for this event. May 1st is, let's say May 1st.
March 1st.
Should say March, shouldn't it? We need some folks to help us with the election. So if you're available, go to election workers or Harris County Votes, either one. How many of you watch the weekly storm? This is done by the Harris County 15 minutes, sometimes it runs over a little bit, of great information. So put that on your calendar. It's a Zoom meeting. You can do it in your pajamas. Okay, March the 1st. Go to harrisvotes.com for information, get your ballot, find the voting locations and votes. The runoff, if there is one, is going to be on March the 23rd, and then also on May the 7th.
It's in May.
May 24th, isn't it?
It's in May.
Yes, it's in May.
Is it 24th?
Yeah,
All right.
It's in May, that's all I know.
It's in May.
It's in May, folks. It's going to be the KISD election.
I'm
We're
looking
doing
on
things.
my calendar.
We're doing things a little bit different. Normally we have a precinct convention when we're all worn out at 8 o'clock Tuesday night. And now we have moved that to where we are having the precinct conventions in the HD districts. So, as you see on the list here, I'm going to be at the Autumn Creek Baptist Church on Barker Cypress because I'm in HD 132. So, when you re-listen to this recording, you can find out exactly where you're going to be for that precinct convention and get the word out to the people. Now, after we complete the precinct conventions, then we have the senatorial district conventions. And the senatorial district convention is going to be all together, except each individual senatorial district will be conducting their own session. So we'll all be together at North Center. These are some of the committees, and if you've got an interest in being involved, contact the individual that is your temporary senatorial district chairperson, and you can get involved from that standpoint. When you make a phone call, they don't answer. You have to leave a voicemail. When they call you back, you don't answer because you're busy. You have to leave them a voicemail. And you play phone tag. If you send them an email, only 1 out of 17 emails is read. I know I said thousands of emails, and 1 out of 17 gets read. Wow. Now, if you send them a letter, it takes 5 days to get there, and then you got to reply in 5 days to get back, and so on. So, if you send them a text, 90% of the texts are read within 3 to 5 minutes. You know how you are. You got that cell phone in your hand. Oh, I got a text. You look at it. So one of the things I'm doing is sending texts to the individuals that are voters in my district, okay, my precinct. And there's a information on how to get that. Every week we got the weekly flyer, we talked a little bit about that. How many of you have been through the Citizens Police Academy? The reason you got 2 hands showing is because those 2 individuals are in the class with me right now. That's being conducted by Sergeant Roy Gunn, and we just did it at Steve Raddick's training center last night. So check this out. You see what our agenda is. You need to learn more about law enforcement, and this will give you an opportunity to do that. Oh, and it's free. In fact, I even got a t-shirt free. Local precinct team sessions. Normally we'd have one this Saturday out in the west side here. It's run by James Clayton. But the next one will be March the 12th, and I'd encourage you to show up there. I see Lauren East that's here, and she's involved in the session too. Great session to attend. Here's another one that Dave Langenfield runs, and there's a lot of them going on. Get involved with them. So put on your calendar the next time that you get to come here is March the 10th, and we'll have another forum, except this time it won't be the primary candidates, it will be the primary winner that will be speaking here. If you'd like to know what happened last month, those of you that missed this session, you can pick up the recordings right there and see. So, at this time, I'd like to call on our first speaker, and he happens to be my state representative, and he's going to bring you up to date tonight on what's going on. Mike Schofield.
I'm a pacer, so Gail told me you got to stay on this if you want to stay on. I once had a secretary who got me suspenders for Christmas, and I thought that was a nice gift. Until I saw that she'd attached a clamp to my desk, and there was, I think she was going to attach it on there, so I couldn't strap all the way throughout. When I get on the phone, I wander out throughout the entire house. Anyway, in a way, I'm glad to see we don't have the size crowd that we normally have. This is about 1/3 of what Gail usually draws to these things. That's because everybody's out working, which normally is what I would come in and exhort you to keep your eye on the prize and spend all day working on the election. Except today, I spent all day working as a state rep and hardly got to the election part at all. So I feel kind of hypocritical. I started the day dealing with higher education stuff, and then did a little bit of flood control stuff, and worked on some crime prevention, and next thing you know, it was time to come here. So I promise you, I will be good to my own word, and from now on, I'm putting my head down through March 1st, 7 o'clock, and just aiming right at it. And we have to make sure that we pick the best possible candidates for every office in this primary, because this is going to be the fight of our lives in November. And you know, a lot of offices that people normally don't pay that much attention to, they've come to realize in the last couple of years are vitally important and impact your life on a daily basis. Most people did not know what a county judge was until we got one who didn't think she was in charge of a county, who thought she was a federal official and was going to start implementing all sorts of laws that she made up herself. I thought it was interesting at the very beginning of the pandemic, she decided that she was going to make a crime. She was going to actually have officers ticket you if you weren't wearing a mask outside and give you and make a criminal offense of it. And I was kind of surprised because I thought I was a legislator. I thought my job was to write the state laws, but no, apparently all you have to do is be elected county judge, and then you get to be queen of your entire area and make laws that everybody has to follow and throw people in jail. Which is interesting because I thought they were totally against throwing anybody in jail.
Exactly.
Right.
In fact, I had lunch with a former judge who was telling me it's worse than you think. They view keeping everybody out of jail as reparations. So that their view is that, well, they've had it bad in past generations, and therefore if they kick your door down and break into your house, well, we're just not going to punish them for that. And I think it was even Lena Hidalgo was saying, you know, do you value your $12 possession they stole over their life? When somebody kicks your door down and breaks in your house, it is not about the value of what they steal.
You better believe
It's
it,
about
brother.
breaching the peace, breaking into your house, and making you feel in danger. And people who are going to do that need to not be on the streets. That's why we have prisons. And I have no problem with them being full as long as that behavior is going on.
Amen.
You want to stop the prisons from being full? If you want to stop the prisons from being full, you teach your people not to kick people's doors in, you teach them not to threaten people with knives, and you threaten them not to rob people. Then we won't have anybody in the prisons. But anyway, so that was a large part of my day today. But we need to pick good candidates up and down the ballot so your voice and exercising it in the primaries is of the utmost importance. So you need to do, assuming you haven't voted yet, how many of you haven't voted yet? Okay. And by the way, I'm seeing that out there. They're low numbers so far. I'll be standing at now, of course, in my district, the county made sure that they took all the polling places out of the places where the Republicans vote and stuck them in obscure places in the hopes that there wouldn't be as many Republican votes. And frankly, that's what it is. Just like last time when they decided they were going to have 24-hour voting, they were going to mail out ballots to everybody. we have a situation here where the referee is trying to help one of the teams win.
Amen.
And that is not the function of an election administrator, it's not the function of a county clerk, it's not the function of an assessor collector. But that's what they've been doing. They're trying to write their own election laws to make sure their party wins. And I will tell you, I'll be one of the first that I fought against countywide polling places for 20 years. The whole time I worked for the governor, it wasn't gonna happen on our watch. And the reason is, the things that they tell you, oh, it saves money for the county, probably. Oh, it's convenient for the voters on election day, maybe, but any voter that wants to vote anywhere in the county has 2 whole weeks to do it. It's only one day where you get to vote in your neighborhood, somewhere convenient, somewhere that you can find. And they're taking that away from people. And if we did it to them, they would sue.
Oh, yeah.
I just picked up in redistricting all the folks behind Barker Reservoir. They took Taylor High School away from them. They can't go south because that's Fort Bend County. They can't go east because that's a reservoir, that's 9 miles of grass. They took away the one polling place that's convenient to them, took away Mud 81, and they put it at a motel that I've lived here for God only knows how many years. I didn't know it was there. They might as well have put it in somebody's attic. I mean, they are going out of their way to make sure it's hard for Republicans to vote. So you know what the solution is? You make darn sure you vote, and you make sure all your neighbors do too. And I'll tell you, in the general election, I'm going to send out, if you live in my district, you're going to get a piece from me, and it's going to point out the 3 closest polling locations, and it's going to say they have specifically tried to keep you from voting by hiding the polling locations, stick it down their throat, and come out and vote. And when you get done doing that, go get 5 of your neighbors. And when you get done with them, go get 5 more. They are not going to take this election by rigging where we vote. They're not going to take it by mailing out mail ballots to hundreds of thousands of people that aren't eligible to vote by mail, and then suddenly those mail ballots show up, voted by somebody else. This election is going to be decided by the voters of Harris County and not the people who run the election. And that's my pledge to you, because we will fight. Anyway, you don't need to hear much from me. I am opposed to the primary, so those of you who live in this district, I would appreciate if you would go vote and vote for me. But we have a bunch of other candidates, unless I need to filibuster till Jack gets here. But you do have other candidates to hear from. Okay, good. Because I can do it, believe me, I can go on forever. And when I see Charles, I'm surprised that Waldy is here, because Waldy is always working. He's the only guy I see working at polling places more than me. He's usually there when I show up, and he's still there when I leave. So Charles, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for everything that all of y'all do. But thank you most importantly for what you're going to do between now and Election Day in November. We are going to recruit our neighbors. We're not even have to explain to them. Normally I'm telling you, you have to explain to them why this is important. Everything we're seeing from the polling and everything we're seeing from talking to people, they get it. And in fact, the Democrats always assumed that we were going to turn this state blue because, as they say, demography is destiny. Because we're going to have more and more Hispanics, what they're coming to find is Hispanic voters don't like having illegal aliens traipse across their property. They don't like having their town inundated. They don't like all of this bizarre left-wing AOC stuff that's been going on. They don't like critical race theory. They don't like any of this Marxist stuff that's being thrown down their throats. And you're going to find more Hispanic Republican voters than we ever knew we had. Yeah. And welcome them to the party, because they are going to be the salvation of Texas. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Michael.
For many years, one of my neighbors was a gentleman named Russ Ridgway. He and I did a lot of block walking together, and he was elected as the Justice of the Peace 5.2. And unfortunately, he lost the last election, but tonight we have with us Jisluk. Bret?
Thank you. Thanks, Gail. Appreciate it very much. I just got to correct you one way.
Bret.
Russ was a...
He hadn't told you, you got 8 minutes, and I'll give you 1 minute sign, and then I'll cut off. So.
No problem. Actually, Russ Ridgway was Precinct 5, Place 1. He lost a year ago. I'm looking to replace Jeff Wade. My name is Bret Jisluk. I'm a lawyer, but more importantly, I'm a father of 3 wonderful kids that will turn 34 this summer, 31 at the end of this month, and 27 this summer. Got 2 beautiful grandkids in my stuff that goes out. 5-year-old granddaughter, 18, 19-month-old grandson. I moved to Texas from Missouri in 1984 to attend law school. I'm a 2nd-generation American. My grandfather, my parents, their parents, everybody taught them work ethic. Why am I running for this bench? Because I'm about efficiency. I value everybody else's time more than I do mine. And I don't have to come here and tell you that, but I'm telling you that because it's something I've been doing for the last 35 years. And as a judge for the last 22 years. A lot of candidates for any other office, even a judge, will tell you, well, I promised to do this, I promised to do that. I'm telling you what I've done for the last 22 years as a judge. In Meadows Place in Fort Bend County, Jacinto City in Harris County, and Jersey Village in Harris County. In addition to getting those courts run efficiently, I figured out a way to do that. It's real simple. Value people's time. So what I did is I came up with 3 ways to do it. And they all work. One is I put a PowerPoint presentation in the courtroom. English and Spanish. Here's your options. Here's what you need if you want to choose one of these options. So if you had 100 people in your courtroom, and the prosecutor spent 3 minutes with each of them, that's 300 minutes. That's 5 hours. We spent about an hour and a half because of that I came up with. We also had 3 lines in one of these courts. I'm not guilty, I want a trial. Staff can handle that. Get them through. Middle lane, I just want to pay my fine. The last lane, I want to do defensive driving or deferred. Here's what they know they need. They go through that line. It's quick. When I ran some of this by Judge Williams and Judge Ridgway, because I met with each of them individually for about 3.5 hours, thanks to Stuart Maker. I told them these ideas, they said, that'll work. We never thought about doing something like that. So it's possible and it will work. The defense bar that comes there are the same guys that come to my courts now. They know how I run things. What used to be an all-night event from 2:30 till about 11 o'clock at night is now till about 6 or 6:30. Because it's your time. How do I save the budgets of these cities? Simple. Have the defendant set for trial be there at 8 o'clock. Jurors come at 9:30, and if we figure out who's going to trial anybody, we call the officers in. Cuts down the overtime. Think about 10 or 15 officers in a small city, overtime for about 2 or 3 hours each. Adds up. So one thing I've been able to do is streamline. Now, what does that mean for a JP court? Because a JP court does 3 things. Criminal and traffic, evictions, and small claims. Well, while the prosecutor, who I will tell them this is how we're doing things on the criminal traffic docket, that means they can go and do that in one room. I can get people that are dealing with evictions before me, speed up that process. It's about 3 months delayed right now because of the pandemic. It's not anything really to do with the judge necessarily. But then I also would have mediators, because they come through and there's mediation companies that train lawyers and everybody else wants to be a mediator. Here's the training you have to go through. We have to get hours in. Those guys will come over for free. They'll come in, and there's mediation rooms set up in the courthouse. They can resolve. 95% of the cases resolve through settlement. You guys get the parties together. How do you get them in the court? The other thing is the evictions. I can schedule those dockets as well, almost simultaneously. There are places out there. There's over $46 billion out there to help people with rental assistance. Nobody's tapped into it. Very little. I reached out to one company back about a month ago, and they called me back or sent me an email back. Let us know how we can help. We'll connect people. So when you get that eviction notice in the lawsuit, it'll have attached there one of these companies. Here's who you contact. Because as the landlord, you want your money. As a tenant, you want to stay. Here's a way to get the money connected to those cases. Get streamlined. They work. But you got to think outside the box. You can't say, well, it's just the way it's always been. I'm a big believer in, if there's a reason to do it, do it. If there's not, think about why you're doing it. I've always questioned everything since I was a little kid, and that's probably why I'm up here today. You can tell me to do something, but tell me why. If it doesn't make sense, I'm not going to do it, because it's got to have a logical base. The other thing is, eviction dockets right now are supposed to be 10 days from the date of filing. They're about 3 or 4 months now.
Wow.
That's not fair to either party. I'm bringing fairness into a courtroom, and I'm bringing experience that works into a courtroom. I'm the only candidate with judicial experience in this race. Why is that important? Because everybody's saying, I heard one in Fort Bend County at a meeting say, he's running for JP as a former police officer. He said it's a people's court. Well, it is. But you're suing somebody for some money. And guess what? The judge controls what evidence gets in. How does he control it? Through the rules of evidence and the rules of procedure, be it criminal or civil. If the judge doesn't know those rules, and he lets the defendant's stuff come in and keeps the plaintiff's stuff out who's suing, well, justice hasn't been carried out. So it is a people's court, but you gotta have somebody at the helm that knows what they're doing, and they're honest, they have integrity and fairness. I grew up in a Jewish household, became more strong in my faith over the last 35 years since I met my wife. But what we have to do is you have to vet people, and I've told this throughout the campaign. I'm new at this. I've only been at this 3 or 4 months. But one thing I learned is talk honestly with people and be who you are. I have people vet me. I say, go look at the State Bar, look at my record. 0 blemishes in 34 years plus. As a judge, 22 years, thousands of cases, 0 blemishes. Now, one of my opponents can't say that. If you go vet people, you'll find out. I also look at their personal background. What are they about? Look and see if they've been sued or have sued people. One of my opponents defaulted on a $2.5 million loan. Why is that important? Because their budget is $40 million at that court. Are they going to manage it properly? I can tell you standing here today as a 60-year-old grandfather, I have 0 debt. I have 1 rental property that has some debt on it, but not much. My house has been paid for, my cars, my kids' education was paid for, and I gave them money to start their life. I've taught them the principles of how to do it, and they live it. So why should you vote for me? I have the integrity, I have the background, and I did not build up my resume to run for public office. I decided last year, around 6 months ago, I said, I want to run. And I did that with everything on the line to come here today. And I'm asking for your support. As Mike Schofield said, I don't ask you to ask 5 people. Go out and tell 30 people, go vote today, and ask each of them to ask 30 people to go. Because you know what? People can put roadblocks in your way to go vote. The Democrats have done that. But I promise you, when the hurricanes hit, you want to go up 45, you're going to be stalled. You want to find another way around, you'll get there. Thank you so much.
I know the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general are important, but on a local basis, the most important thing that we have to do is to replace the county judge. Help me welcome Randy Kubosh.
My name is Randy Kubosh, and I'm running for Harris County Judge. And I'm the younger brother of Michael Kubosh. Michael, stand up there. Hey. He is a 3-term Houston City Councilman. My brother said, I'm an outsider. Put me on the inside, and I'll tell you what's really going on out there. And he kept his word, and I'll keep my word to all the Harris County taxpayers and the citizens. I want to also say that I'm a true Republican. I've never voted for or Democrats. I've never financially contributed to Democrats. I'm also a political outsider, a political warrior, because my brothers and I have been known for a few ballot box initiatives in the city of Houston, most namely the red light cameras. In 2010, we gathered 55,000 signed petitions. We got it on the ballot, and the citizens of Houston voted it out at 186,633. But it wasn't over then, not at all, because the City of Houston, a red light camera company, filed a friendly lawsuit, and got federal judge Lynn Hughes to invalidate the election. Now, I felt pretty offended by that, because I feel like the vote of the people is something sacred, and that it shouldn't be messed with. But this Lynn Hughes, the federal judge, invalidated it. So I filed an amicus brief, if you the lawyers know, and I became an intervener in the lawsuit, and I took that lawsuit all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and we won. I also want to tell you that 6 months after the red light cameras had been taken down, the City of Houston, the Houston Chronicle reported that the accidents at those intersections were down 30%. So another win for the citizens of Houston. Also, I want to tell you a little bit about, I have a contract here. I want to tell you that Randy Kubosh is somebody who believes in keeping his word. My mother, when my father passed, my father was ill, and I took care of him until the day he died, and my brother and we took my mother, after my father passed, we took her to the downtown Houston Pachyderm Club. I want to say that I was president of the downtown Houston Pachyderm Club a couple of years. I was vice president a couple of years, and we would take my mother there, and she became pretty well known there, and people loved her. And my mother asked me, she said, "Randy, are you going to take care of me like you took care of your father?" And I said, "Yes, Mom, I will. I'll take care of you." And I did. I kept my word with my mother. She lived with me for 7 years. She was bedridden 30 months. It was brutal. But I want to tell you, she had Alzheimer's and dementia. But I tell you, I believe in what the Bible says. The fifth commandment is honor thy father and thy mother, and your days will be long on earth. And I want to tell you, I honored my father and my mother, and I've got a contract. And it's a yellow card. I didn't put them on the chairs, but you can look at it. And I have a contract with Harris County. And I want to tell you, the reason why I told you about my parents is because Randy Kubosh will keep his word.
Amen.
I'm going to keep my word to the Harris County citizens. And I want to also say that I've also been, I'm 67 years old, and so in my lifetime I've spent, a lot of people feel like the Harris County judge position, the commissioners, it's more of a road and bridge type of job and management. And I spent 25 years in engineering, designing chemical plants and refineries. I was a project engineer. I issued contracts. I wrote up contracts myself, and I understand the bid process. And I'll guarantee you this, that we're going to have a fair system for awarding contracts whenever Randy Kubosh is a Harris County judge. I've been involved in sealed contracts, sealed bids, and I've been involved in it, and I know what it takes. I also want to tell you that I have had a history with my brother. When he became a pastor, he asked me, "Hey Randy, would you come help me with the church?" And so I quit my job at Mobil Oil and got a job down at Dow Chemical in Freeport, and I helped him with the church. I led his song service, and I was his children's pastor for over 10 years. And one day my brother came back from a pastor's conference, and he says, he went to the largest church in America that had a bus ministry. And he says, "Randy, we're going to do a bus ministry." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, we bought us a bus." So we went out. He says, and I said, "Well, who's going to drive that bus?" He said, "Well, Randy, you're going to drive that bus." And so I did. I drove that bus on Sunday mornings. I would go pick up kids. Sometimes the bus would only hold 65, so I'd have to make two trips. And our church we had, we reached out to young people, young children and teenagers. We also had a Wednesday night service where we had a scouting program. I also drove the bus on those days. Why do I tell you that? I tell you that because I want you to know that Kuboshes, my brothers and I, we love people. We care about people. Because you don't do that unless you care about the future generation. You care about what our generation is going to become. So I tell you all of that so you understand a little bit about the Kuboshes, my brothers, and Mike, and I have a brother Paul, who's a criminal defense attorney, who's done a lot of traffic, and a lot of people know us. I want to also say that I said when I became county judge that I was going to call out these judges. These judges that are letting these habitual, violent criminals back into our community. And then it realized after getting the 156 names from Crime Stoppers, that we couldn't wait. I told my brother, you're an elected official. You could call a press conference. So we did. We called a press conference, and we had pastors there because the people who had family members died and murdered needed comfort, somebody to call. So these churches are reaching out to these people who've had family members die. And we're calling out, we called out all of these, we're calling out these judges. We're filing judicial complaints against these judges right now. We've done 12 of them. And I want to also say, we're sending a strong message to these judges. We're filing these complaints. I want to leave with one other last thing because I believe I stand for the Republican Party of Texas platform and I follow it. I've been a lifelong Republican, a lifelong Texan. I want to leave you with this one thought. I am pro-life, just like your mother was. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
So one of the most exciting races going on with multiple candidates in it is our race for Congressional District 8. Help me welcome Jonathan Hullihan.
Thanks guys for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. These are kind of some talking points, but I'm going to go through my general background, biography, and then because it is a leadership forum, I'm going to give you an example of leadership that I had in my career that I think was very important. So background, I grew up in Congressional District 8, which is a little northwest of here. Starts in Katy, goes all the way around to Polk County. Now after redistricting. Grew up in Montgomery County, got a football scholarship to go to Texas State University, played defensive line there where I double majored, graduated cum laude, went to law school at Loyola College of Law in New Orleans. While at Loyola, the Navy JAG recruiter was in the hallway. We were a nation at war, Iraq and Afghanistan kicked off, and I wanted to join the Navy JAG Corps and become a naval officer and serve my nation in time of war. So after I joined the Navy JAG Corps, I was a commissioned naval officer, passed the bar exam, went to my first duty station in Jacksonville, Florida, where I worked with then now Governor Ron DeSantis. He was also a Navy JAG, that's his background, same background that I have. Went to Iraq with the Marines, deployed, following that, went to Afghanistan with the Navy SEAL teams, Special Operations Task Force, where I specialized in rules of engagement, national security law, international law. I was also the JAG for the East Coast-based SEAL teams. Following that, I was the JAG for the Blue Angels, and then I went to a Special Operations unit in Tampa, Florida, where I worked with Special Operations Command, conducting missions, strategic missions at the tactical level. That's all I'll really say about that. I'm still a commander in the Navy Reserves. I'm a senior officer, like an 05. I decided to get out of the Navy off active duty after 13 years. I work at a law firm in the Woodlands, where I represent some of America's frontline doctors, like Dr. Stella Emanuel, in the fight for medical liberty. The reason I'm running for Congress is the same reason most of you are here, involved, you're active in your communities, you kind of woke up to what's going on. We're not seeing the same country we grew up in. We're seeing a move toward centralization of the federal government. We're really throwing the checks and balances the founders envisioned askew. Whether we're talking about the federal government relationship with the states, we're talking about the relationship within the three branches of government. We've really seen it accelerate where the Congress has abdicated a lot of their duties to the executive branch in these various federal agencies. So for example, the OSHA statute, you've seen the executive branch abuse that and try and force vaccine mandates through the executive branch. The Department of Education, why do we even have that? I think we need to eliminate the Department of Education. It's really thrown the checks and balances that the founders envisioned, the 18 enumerated authorities or responsibilities of the federal government is skewed. For example, stop illegal immigration. I mean, Article 4, Section 4, it's called the Guarantee Clause. The federal government is supposed to guarantee a Republican form of government, which is states' rights. We agree that the states have rights, and the federal government has these enumerated powers, and also to stop from invasion. What we see at the southern border is an invasion, whether we're talking about human trafficking, illegal aliens, fentanyl, across the board. It's an invasion. Socialism, I mean, socialism is such a general term, but if you talk about the spending clause, the Congress has used the spending clause to entice the states on critical race theory. So if you look at the CARES Act, Texas accepted $39 million of CARES Act money through the spending clause, which has things like social emotional learning and equity. So those are things that you need your members of Congress to really be attuned to before they have these bills and these spending bills. That's kind of how the balance of power is getting thrown off. So as a naval officer and as an officer of the court, as an attorney for 15 years, I've dedicated my entire adult life to the Congress, to the Constitution. And that's why I'm running for Congress. Because we need strong leaders that actually understand the Constitution, understand the checks and balances, understand the power of the federal government, and bring that power back to we the people. Because those powers not enumerated in the federal government are reserved to the states for the people. Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution, all legislative powers shall be vested in the Congress of the United States, in the Senate and the House of Representatives. I truly believe that we take our power back through the Congress one seat at a time, and then we defund and de-scope this out-of-control federal government that way. Make no mistake, that's why the founders put Article 1, Section 1. The Congress was meant to be the strongest branch of government, and it's completely flipped on its head, and we need to take that back. And I'm going to talk about a story. I talk about it every once in a while because it's a leadership forum. When I was in Afghanistan, I did rules of engagement. So I was in the operations center. We had screens much like this, desks. I mean, think of it like a movie. That's how it looked. And we would have Navy SEALs in contact with enemy forces. So depending on the platform, the rules of engagement were, depending on the bombs you want to drop or what platform, you had to call it back to the headquarters to get approval. I was in what's called the kill chain. So the kill chain, as the JAG, was the last person that really approved it, gave legal concurrence before we dropped on a target and executed targets or buildings. So in this circumstance, we had some targets. We had about 15, it's not the proper term, but military age males that were setting up for an attack. They were coordinating. I can't really get into details how we knew what they were doing, but the ground force commander called in for a fire. We were gonna hit the targets and eliminate the threat. 15 military age males kind of in a circle. Well, it came to me and it was kind of a grainy feed from what I could tell, and they looked like they were bundled up with something. I couldn't really tell. They were hunched over, but they called in the strike, and it got to me, and I couldn't concur because I couldn't distinguish the targets. So under international law and the law of armed conflict, you have to distinguish your targets. So I said, sir, no, I can't get a clear feed here. I can't distinguish the combatants from the civilians. So they went back and they said, can you confirm there's no civilians in the target range? And they said, yep, no civilians, we're all good. Enemy combatants, request fires on the previously provided grid. So I went back to the commander. I still couldn't really tell. And I don't know what it was. I think it's a God thing now, looking back. But I non-concurred with the strike. And the commander, the SEAL commander, he trusted me. I built enough relationship through previous engagements and other things. And he said to me, okay, are you sure? I said, yes, sir. So everybody in the room, a whole 50, let's say 50 SEALs, Green Berets, National Mission Force guys, all these guys were like, JAG doesn't want to execute the target. JAG's in our way. JAG doesn't want to get the mission done. So I kind of waited and I hesitated. That was the moment they were trying to pressure me and bully me. And I stuck to my guns and I said, no, sir, I can't give you legal concurrence. Because the mission was not to kill civilians. And nobody wants to kill civilians anyway. Well, about 15 seconds later, that group broke up and every single one of them were holding babies.
Oh.
Every single one. That was a setup because the week before we had done that in Western Afghanistan. They cause an international incident. They were trying to get us to kill the kids to get us to cause an international incident. The room went silent. The commander turned to me and said, "You just saved us in Afghanistan." And that's when I'm in Congress, when that pressure comes on me to change my decision or not go with my instinct, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick to my belief system and what I think is right. By the way, we got the guys later that weren't only kids, so don't worry about that. But that's why I'm running for my name is Jonathan Hullihan. Go to my website. We had a debate in the Berry Center last Monday with two other candidates, hosted by Laura Logan from Fox News. If you go on my Facebook page, I recommend you watch that debate, share that debate, and you will know who to select for your next member of Congress for Congressional District 8. Thank you very much.
Ives is a nice guy. He's a friend of mine. He's also the timer for the speakers. And when it gets to that 1 minute point, well, he holds that finger up. And when it gets to the end, he does this. Now, we've got some other scheduled speakers, but in addition to that, we have some candidates that we've given a 2-minute session to. So theirs is a 30-minute one figure notification. So I'd like to bring up Dillian Mockers.
Maybe 1 minute and then.
Hello everyone, I'm Daniel. This is a new speech, so please bear with me. I'm here today before you because I have a purpose from God, and a higher power that I cannot explain. Since 1995, I have helped thousands of people in their lives, no matter the limitations of the world. I am here because I've been shown a path to help more people, and to help people in their lives that a much greater number of people nationwide and throughout the world. I did not get a phone call from local politicians telling me to run, nor did I have to consult with anyone other than God as why I am here today. I didn't lose to a Democrat last election cycle, nor did I vote for Obama and am now standing vice president. My point, I would never support a standing president. Vice president were given to the establishment of Washington, D.C., nor will I become a traitor Republican whining. My political views are one and the same with our founding fathers. Furthermore, I already took an oath to defend the United States Constitution and defend the laws and regulations of Texas. I am here today before you and on this ballot simply because I'm dispelling the number of people that I can help, but not to help them jump high, lose weight, or improve better lives, but to help Americans to elitism and help Americans save them money from our government, and help end this tyrannical government, and help end the crisis just 400 miles southwest of us. I'm here today not only because I've been doing God's work on earth for over 2 decades, but since a young man I now know that I've had views or visions, some call it deja vu, or some told me it's the Holy Spirit reaching out to me. I want you, all of you, to help me prove the Washington establishment and local politicians wrong. The people still win the election, not politicians influenced when it comes to a federal election campaign. I am the only true Catholic conservative candidate in the New Texas 38 district. My name is Danny Matthew Peter Marcus, and I need all of your support in our federal session to help make America great, just like Texas.
Let's see, Roger. Oh, okay. Come on up, everybody. I'm going to speak for Mark Ramsey. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, my name is Roger Williams. I live in Champion South, and I was in Dan Crenshaw's district, and I put up a sign in my yard. My neighbors walk by all the time because we're in a closed loop, and I'm sometimes on that track too. They look at me like, "You're a traitor, dude." I was like, "No, man. Dan Crenshaw's not going to be on your ballot this time. We're in the new U.S. District 38. So after the 2020 census, Texas picked up 2 seats. 38 is one of the new ones. And so Crenshaw, part of his district is now in 38. Part of McCall's district is also now in 38. So I went to Glorious Way Church twice in 2021, and the precinct chair level leaders in 38 invited all the candidates to come, and almost every one of them came. There was one, Washington Wesley, he had a spokesman there who promised that, oh, he's not here this time, but he'll be there the next time. And 2 weeks later, it's already on the calendar, he wasn't there. Here's his voting record. He voted twice since 2008, once in the Democratic primary, and in 2020, he voted as a Republican for the first time ever when he voted for himself to lose against Lizzie Fletcher. So Mark Ramsey's a solid, conservative Republican, grassroots Mark Ramsey, Washington Wesley. Pretty easy choice.
Let's see if we had any other. Did you want to speak on behalf of Aaron?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just say one quick word? Yeah. My name is Don Dutlinger. I'm on the west side. I'm running for a precinct of my little neighborhood. I had met with Jeb here, who's my mentor, helping me get across the line, trying to displace someone that's been there a couple of decades, and maybe we can do a little bit better, have a little more hands-on. But I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, Mr. Hullihan, thank you for coming. I did see that debate live, and you ruled that one, so he really knocked his competition in on that one. So really hope you can get across the line and be a strong leader for us. But I had a chance 2 nights ago to meet Aaron Sorrells. He's running for lieutenant governor. I know I've liked what our lieutenant governor has said in the past, but I think we can do a lot more in that position. And I think that we can do a lot more in the governor position as well. So take a good look at those candidates. I've got some brochures for Aaron here. Really solid family man and a good, America First patriot. He's going to be like some of these candidates we heard here tonight. Texas first. We need a strong Texas. This guy's a several generation Texan family and just a solid guy. So please have a look, grab one of these flyers and have a look at it. See if he makes sense to you guys. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
We've been talking about the courts. We've been talking about the commission's court. We've been talking about the county judge. And our next speaker is Alexandra Mealet.
Anytime we have, just fire away on any sort of Q&A. So I started my career in the military, went to West Point right after 9/11, thought I was going to be a JAG prosecutor, but ultimately as the War and Terror picked up, decided to go EOD or Army Bomb Squad. For me at the time, that was really the most impactful role I could have. To be blunt, that's really what was killing my friends, and I wanted to learn more about it. So while I was in the military, had the opportunity to deploy to Afghanistan. The very first few months was a traditional combat role. I had some of those interesting experiences where I spent a lot of time in the operations center. But where that leadership makes a difference, and one of the stories I'm actually most proud about, which should probably irritate most infantry guys, was the first real troops in contact that happened overseas. I was supporting 2nd 502, 101st. It was a similar story he described, where they have a history in Afghanistan of them mixing kids and attacking. So we were responding to an IED, and it was actually my EOD troops that were the first to shoot back. So all the infantry guys hesitated. That's very dangerous, that hesitation. And why that happened is Obama was our commander-in-chief, and he'd made the our ROE, rules of engagement, so restrictive that even while we were being shot at, so rockets were hitting our vehicles, it took the infantry guys that extra pause because they didn't know if they were going to be okay to respond and defend themselves. That's something where we'll talk more, but I've seen that here in Harris County, where our law enforcement all seem to have that same hesitation, where they know if there's ambiguity, that the benefit of the doubt is not going to go their way.
That's right.
So that's one of my actually most proud stories, is the fact that my EOD guys had the confidence and faith to know if they used their reasoned judgment, I was going to be back there behind them, and it was us who shot first. rightly so, but they mess with you. So as you're getting in this firefight, the last hours, it breaks and little kids run out. And then the kids go away, and then they start shooting at you again, where they are purposely toying with it. A few months later in my deployment, so my first few months, diffused IEDs, and then more importantly, spent time in those operations center where you are watching. We've got a lot of eyes in the sky, trying to make those hard decisions. And relevant to this job, there's unfortunately always a supply-demand imbalance. Too many IEDs, not enough bomb techs. So you had to get very good at very quickly figuring out how do I allocate this extremely scarce resource, and learn not to make a perfect decision, but how do you make a good decision as quickly as possible. A few months into my deployment, due to a combat death, I got an early promotion and had my first truly executive role. So not combat operations, was a complete 180, went from planning missions to now very administrative. So I had 600 to 800 people reporting to me, spread across 40 locations. It was a logistics nightmare. We didn't have control of our equipment. People were losing rifles. It was as dysfunctional, to be frank, as the scenes that you saw. Leaving Afghanistan, something that I was proud of, thought I was going to be this great bomb tech, was actually ensuring accountability. First time in 10 years this organization actually knew where all the equipment was, and really worked hard to make sure that these National Guard troops that were using Vietnam era finally got the benefit of all this brand new equipment that was quite literally sitting there in containers. So not what I expected to do, but was a great confidence builder to quickly adjust, learn a new skill very quickly, figure out how to tackle a problem. And the other more important thing that happened during that role is I had a very senior enlisted counterpart, 19 years, so a year from being ready to retire. He was a core cause of that problem. Was told basically to be a babysitter, was supposed to just kind of clean up after him, but nobody wanted me to rock the boat, because unfortunately, much like big government, it's much better to turn a blind eye to say that you have a problem.
That's right.
Because typically you rotate every couple of years, so if you could just hold it together, then nobody looks bad and everything's okay, but these problems they build. So eventually reached the point where I realized I was not in control of this unit. It was great to be called company commander, but it wasn't my company. I couldn't fix it with this individual as my counterpart. So eventually reached the point where I signed my own counseling statement saying, you either investigate this individual for a host of issues, or I resign my command, you send me home. Thankfully, they actually did decide to do that investigation, and it took a 3-star general, but he was relieved. So it was very high profile. It was a few weeks where I didn't know in my 20s did it just end my military career. But it was one of the most important lessons, very relevant for this job, because I did learn sometimes you only get one silver bullet, and you should use it wisely. So if you left me, I'd be very excited to use that silver bullet here in Harris County. It's a good relevant story. So after that, it really did have that dramatic, proved the fact that sometimes addition by subtraction works, because it was a dramatic transformation in the organization. We did function very effectively after that. When I completed my deployment, what I didn't say in the background is that my husband's also a combat vet, he's military, and in 6 years, we never lived together. So good old big Army planning. The day I left for Afghanistan out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, he was assigned there about 3 hours before. So essentially had done a high five, and that was about it. So we got very excited. I went and applied to grad school. I got into Harvard, completed my law and business degree. My husband got an engineering degree at MIT. And we quite literally looked at the map and said, where do we want to live? Where do we want to start our family? And we chose Houston specifically because it was 2012, Shell Revolution, the chance to be part of energy independence. And there was nothing else that seemed as exciting or as impactful as being a part of that. So we moved down here, and Houston really lived up to what its reputation is. It is a meritocracy. People value what you can do, not who you know. As we all know, that's Dallas. And I was very grateful to start our life here, have young children. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I moved my family down and my mom's family down. And because of good governance and people like Commissioner Cagle, my first few years, I didn't have to focus a lot on county government. You would see Ed Emmett come on TV, and he was that voice of calm in the crisis. And I didn't realize what a luxury it was, how much the fact that we had 30 years of good conservative governance that afforded us the ability to go about our daily business and not have to really drill into what was happening in our county. Very quickly, it appeared to me that things had changed. With Lena, we all know that life is not under control anymore. And why I decided to run front today is as you dig into these issues, you realize just how poorly mismanaged it is, and that we don't have to settle for this new normal because these challenges are very fixable. And most importantly, we know what good governance looks like. We just have to roll it back a few years. So very excited to try to restore our county. Thank you.
Earlier, we talked about the local get-togethers of precinct chairmen and precinct leaders, and I showed you one that's coming up on March the 12th. It's being hosted by James Clayton. James is standing in the back. Hold your hand up there, James. So you guys are getting
Hey, boy, James.
We are losing a powerful congressman in the northern section of Houston, but we've got a number of folks good folks vying for that position. Our next candidate is Christine Collins. Christine?
Howdy. Well, sorry, I'm a little bit underdressed. I've been working the polls all day, as probably many of you have been doing the same. So I've learned firsthand that we've got a great community here in the Great Eastern area. We've got so many people that work so hard. And politics brings out the best and the worst of people. I heard once that politics, so politics, the root word, poly meaning many, ticks meaning blood-sucking parasites. So maybe you've heard that before. It's fun. So look, we're running for Congress because we feel that this country's in peril. And I've been working for a long time in my community with activists to improve our country in a lot of different ways. And I'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. But first, what I'll tell you about me is I come from a big conservative Christian home. My father pastored a church, but they were missionaries overseas. And I've been so blessed by this country. I've had so much fun getting to know so many great people in this country. I worked 2 jobs through high school, college, and grad school to afford my education. First person in my family to graduate formal college, and it's been such a blessing. I've had so many opportunities in this country that is unlike anywhere else in the world. Look, just getting to have the opportunities I've had, I've recognized that the American dream is something that we have to preserve. We have to fight to keep it, because that doesn't hear us. And so, as leader of Texas Youth Summit, we've worked to educate youth for a long time, for the last 3 years, on conservative and Judeo-Christian values. We want to educate youth that America is truly exceptional, but we have to fight to keep it that way. Because if we don't do that, they're going to go off to college and they're going to find out pretty quickly that they're going to be indoctrinated with all types of ulterior, different beliefs. And so we work to educate those young people on those principles so that they can go off to college and actually stand up to their teachers whenever they're told something different. I've worked with our pro-life activists for a long time, and I'm proud to be endorsed by Texas Right to Life. Working with our pro-life activists, getting our community engaged in this process, working with pastors and faith leaders to pray with 40 Days for Life in front of Planned Parenthood. So being an activist is a part of who I am. I've worked with our food bank, and in the height of the China coronavirus being unleashed on the world, we've worked to get these churches set up as distribution centers. And so being a person of service is who I am. I didn't just start getting involved in helping my community whenever I wanted to run for office. It's been something that's been intricately a part of my life. Since finishing my undergrad and grad school, I've been working in the North Houston area as well as Montgomery County to get people involved. I'm a part of the Montgomery County Friends of the NRA, work with Church of the Good Soldier to help our vets with PTSD. These things are really important to me. We've got to fight to help improve our communities, make them stronger, and I've had so much fun doing that. I feel like we need a bold new generation of fighters in this fight, and I feel like it's important that young people get involved in the political process And so I'm excited to be endorsed by some great people in this race. And Madison Cawthorn's one of them. He's 26, he's the youngest member of Congress. He'll be with me this weekend campaigning. And I feel like young people have really, and what we've seen in the left especially, is that the Democrat establishment has really kowtowed to people like AOC. And she's driven the agenda in their party. And you had all of the Democrat presidential candidates believing in, I guess, or whether they believed it or not, they were expressing that they would go by the Green New Deal. And that's incredible. I mean, that's incredible that that's the power of a vision and a mission by a young person. And of course, we vehemently disagree on those principles. But my point is that young people are rising up in this country and they're working alongside our older generations to fight to take our country back. And I feel like we need fresh ideas, bold leadership, people to step up to the mantle and take our country back. There's so many issues that are at stake. I don't know where to even begin. Election security, integrity is so important. If you look at this 2020 election, there are a lot of people, myself included, that do not feel that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. Anyone here believe that? No. I didn't think so. Well, you look at Pennsylvania, 40% of the votes, mail-in ballots, were deemed unconstitutional. They were thrown out. That's just one example. The way that they suppressed the Joe Biden's son, his laptop situation, that story from getting out until after the election. That was a part of it. They circumvented the state legislatures, right? They circumvented the state legislatures, and they are supposed to be the ones that create election law. And you had a Democrat governor in Pennsylvania, for example, who went about it the wrong way. And through executive order, they want to just usher in these new credences. And that's what they do. Never let a crisis go to waste. That's Rahm Emanuel's quote, and that's what Democrats do. And so we have to secure our elections. We need to audit every single state in 2020 and figure out what happened in the 2020 election. It's so important that we fight now. And what Democrats are doing, look, they want H.R. 1 to pass. They want to federalize our elections. They want to take control of everything. They want to send everyone a no-no. They want felons and illegal immigrants to be able to vote. That's wrong. We've got to fight for our country. If they have their way, we'll never elect a Republican ever again. Thankfully, though, patriots are rising up. I'm excited to see what happened in Virginia. And I'm encouraged by the candidates, the great crop of candidates that are running here in Harris County, because, look, if it happened in Virginia, it can happen here in Harris County. We can take back our communities, we can take back our city, we can take back our country. We can do it. But we have to have secure elections. And we can't let them cheat. Man, I only get one more minute. We have to secure the border. We have to finish the wall. We have to end illegal immigration. We have to end catch and release. Because these ideas are dangerous. They've had 2 million illegal immigrants come into our country. It's wrong. It has to stop. And we have to back our Border Patrol completely. We have to fund them. We have to allow them to actually enforce our nation's sovereignty, enforce our laws, because if we don't, we're not going to have a country. Until that time, we need to enforce a moratorium. We need to pass a moratorium in this country on all immigration until we end illegal immigration. These are some of the most important ideals. Obviously, it's connected to the crime. Houston's the #1 place for crime in the country. We can go in depth about that, but I only have 1 more minute. So I encourage you to get involved with our campaign. We have an exciting America First rally. I have Marjorie Taylor Greene, Mike Lindell. We have so many others, Madison Cawthorn, DC Drake coming to a rally with me this Saturday, at Grace Woodlands. I'd be so excited for you guys to get involved. You can go to my website, christiancollins.org. It's free to be a part of this rally. Would love to see you guys there, christiancollins.org. Thank you guys so much. Take care. God bless.
Mr. Stolzenburg, I have to admit that my phone just went dead, so you no longer have a timer. Well, yeah.
That's apropos because there's just one speaker left. I had actually scheduled, Jack, Cagle to be the first speaker, but the good folks at Katie Rodeo asked him to get it started off with the invocation, so we moved to the last.
Isn't it
So
great that we have
thanks.
sport that still prays before they start? And thank you so much, Gail, for allowing me to go at the end so that I could have that privilege of leading a stadium full of youth and other folks in prayer before we began. What an awesome experience. Gail said I had 7 minutes, and so I put the clock on here so I could stay on time. Oh, I get a few extras there. But we have a few of you here who have heard me say a word or two, a time or two lately. Let me talk to you about death, taxes, bureaucracy, and boldness. Death, taxes, bureaucracy, and boldness. Death. It's 157 people who are now dead. This isn't a thing that happens somewhere, someplace. These are 157 folks that live in our county who are no longer living and breathing. These are precious souls of God. Amen. Who are no longer with us because we as a county, and when I say we as a county, I'm talking about the 3-2, our AOC wannabe, and our progressive politicians, the socialist politicians that have come in to our county and have adopted what they said were best practices. We paid millions of your dollars to engage foreign firms to study and to tell us what the best practices of other places were. They're from New Orleans and they're from the East Coast, and so they studied Chicago and LA and Philadelphia. They studied Seattle for the best practices that we needed to have for our criminal justice reforms. And we have adopted those on a 3-2 vote over and over and over again. And now those best practices of Chicago have succeeded because Harris County now has the highest murder rate in the country.
Right.
We adopt the best practices of the places where folks are fleeing from to come to where we are, and then we are surprised at the results. So to the wind, reap the whirlwind. A more subtle death that we face, but it's an important one, deals with our roadways and our infrastructure. I-45 is not just a bad road that keeps people from work. It is a dangerous road. It was actually ranked nationally as one of the most dangerous roads to be on, and it has been planned for 30 years with over 300 public engagement meetings during that period of time for us to be able to make it a safer, modern road. In addition to needing to save the lives of deaths on I-45, in addition to the economic benefit that I-45 would have to folks, because if you can take 3 trips in a day instead of 1 trip in a day because you're stuck in traffic, then that benefits our economy. It is also the safety passage for the surf. In other words, when the surfs rise and people are fleeing the floodwaters, I-45 is the corridor to safety. And yet, our progressives have said, and I'll quote Judge Hidalgo, she values people more than cars. But I think that we need to finish the sentence. Unless you happen to be a person in a car, we hate, you're evil. But if we value people more than cars. If you're in a car trying to get away from the floodwaters, on I-45. If you are in a car trying to get back and forth to work, no, we don't value you. And if you're a person who's driving a car and you're in an accident because it's an unsafe road, no, we don't care about you. We care about people more than cars unless you're a person that needs a car for your livelihood. By the way, any of y'all recognize that we are in Harris County in Houston? We're not in New York where you live in tenements. We're not in other places where we go. We need to actually respect our culture. Allow us to have our vehicles, please. Thank you very much. Death, as individuals that I represent you as your county commissioner. 3 months ago, I would have been a foreigner and I'd had to get a hall pass or a passport from Commissioner Ramsey to come down here to talk to you.
Right.
So why did this Freaky Friday switch occur? What happened so that the other 3 members of court would be so mad that when in redistricting, which is a good thing, you would have to displace 200,000 people, that they would displace 2.3 million people? What would make them so angry that they would have to engage that kind of retribution upon you people, that they would switch who your commissioner was, and the folks that were in the old precinct 4, take their commissioner that had worked for them for 10 years? Why would they get that angry to want to do the switch? And it boils down to when you go to the commissioner's court, when we saw the map that was given to us hours before they voted on it, but they had been dealing with for a long time. Judge Hidalgo herself said, I just don't like the race to the bottom and your stance on the taxes. You see, Texas has valued property rights since its inception. And until the 1970s, it required 5 members of court. And by the way, in all of the 254 counties of the state of Texas, everyone has 5 members of commissioner's court. A county judge that's elected countywide and 4 commissioners. It used to require all 5 members of court to be present if there was going to be an increase in the property tax on the people. 5. In the 1970s, they got reduced to where it required a supermajority of 4. And some of that was because of some of the old cases where they were trying to hold commissioner's court in a hospital and someone was tied up and a few things like that. But you still had to have 4 members of court to be present if you were going to increase the taxes on the public without their permission. This is an important caveat there, without their permission. Commissioner Steve Raddick and I, 3 years ago, had the audacity that when the 3 new folks wanted to raise your property taxes by 8%, which was the maximum that they were allowed to increase your taxes without asking your permission. And I always said, you know, if the progressive socialists on court want to increase the taxes by 7% or 8%, I'm willing for them to put it on the ballot and let you guys decide.
Right.
Well, they don't want to do that. You know why? Because they know that you don't want your taxes raised. Especially after Harvey, especially after the pandemic. You've had to tighten your belt. You've had to struggle to make things meet. And here we are on the government side wanting to be tax spenders instead of looking out for the tax payers. And because of the stance of Commissioner Ramsey and the stance of myself, they decided to switch 2.3 million people to try to give an opportunity to pick one of us off. Because there's this belief that somehow or another that you would not know, that somehow or another that if they gave you a new commissioner that you would suddenly want to have your taxes raised. Or that perhaps if you had a new commissioner, they might want someone with a different attitude towards crime. I have been finding out that the beautiful people in Katy, which I used to work with years ago as a lawyer, have had the same ideas about taxes and death that I do. Thank you. I'm home. I'm having fun. So, death, taxes, and bureaucracy. We have created, as part of the PFM study, these people that we spend millions of your dollars for, to study and to learn best practices of other places, that it is more efficient, according to them, to create more bureaucracy. How many of you believe that just as a principle, that it's more efficient to have more bureaucracy? We were promised they would save us money in this last budget cycle. It was an extra $5 million that we had to come up with to pay the extra bureaucrats that were created by the more efficient tax-saving bureaucracy. I know that that's a shocker for some of you. And I derogatorily refer to the person that they put in charge of the some 20 agencies that used to report to the public through Commissioner's Court as the supreme bureaucrat. And the supreme bureaucrat, and it is efficient, but it's efficient in a Stalinistic style. The supreme bureaucrat, if they want to fire somebody, they can. Doesn't require court, appearance, doesn't require notice. They want to fire somebody, they're fired of the 20 agencies that were underneath them. If they want to hire somebody, they get to hire them without vetting it through Commissioner's Court on their own. And they have created a system to where it is efficient because it is powerful, like Nazi Germany or a Stalin's Russia. We don't like what you're doing, you disappear. Efficiency. Winston Churchill talked about efficiency and said that he liked a messy government where it was all done in the open and in public.
Yeah.
I wish I had that exact quote of his, but I just love that concept. Let us debate it. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but let's at least do it in front of witnesses with swords drawn, not through bureaucrats whacking folks in the night and increasing their budgets. Speaking of the cost of the bureaucracy, Commissioner Ramsey and I both proposed budgets in this last budget cycle. My budget was, let's go back to 2018, before this insanity started to invade our county, and take the budget that we had in 2018 as a baseline. And then instead of using the smarter politics, the smarter practices of law enforcement to where we give beneficently to our law enforcement the tools that we from our think tanks have decided that they should have, let's instead give our local cops, our constables, our sheriffs, our prosecutors, the folks that help us, let's look at the local people and ask them what they want. And so Tom Ramsey's budget and mine both gave our local law enforcement everything that they asked for. And Tom went through and cut from the budget. And I went through and I just went as a baseline, because a lot of this stuff has been moving like a shell game, so you don't always know where it is. And with my budget, by giving law enforcement every dime that they asked, and us going back to 2018, we would have $42 million left over to go back into the public contingency fund. That's an important fund. That's the one when the hurricanes come that we pay for stuff. The fund that 3 years ago used to have $300 million in it, now has $32 million for the next hurricane. But it's okay, you can rest assured, because now we've started to add the COVID money into the fund that we called, that was the public contingency fund, and by adding that federal dollars that has been through the laundering machine, we now say we've got $90 million in the public contingency fund. Fake money, moved around money. It's $32 million where we used to have $300 million. Bureaucracy. But in my final minutes, let's talk about boldness. All the talk about this progressive movement, and this is where we need to be. This is an exciting time for us to be bold. One of my favorite movies that I didn't know it was my favorite until I saw it late at night when I couldn't sleep a little while back, had Cagle, James Cagle. Most of you are too young to remember him. Maybe you saw him on a rerun like I did. But James Cagle was in a movie, it was called The Gallant Hours. And it was about the Battle of Guadalcanal. And he was portraying Bull Holsey. And in this movie, he had this moment in the Battle of Guadalcanal to where the U.S. forces have been losing and losing and losing. And Bull came in and shook things up a little bit, put his friends in. They were killed in this battle. The U.S. forces were way outgunned, but in this battle at Guadalcanal, it was a tie. And the superior forces of the Japanese in this battle left the field, and the American forces were able to retain their zone. And in a conversation that Bull Holsey had with an aide when it was over with, the aide said, "This is terrible. All of this resources and everything went into this battle, and it was a tie." And Bull Holsey said, "No, this is wonderful, because before now, we were losing. And now, with their superior forces, we fought them to a tie. And now we can start winning." I submit to you, 4 years ago, when Beto put his $32.5 million into this county, we got whooped. But 2 years ago, when they put a similar amount of money in again, it was a tie. We lost a state rep, but we gained Schofield back again. And I'm very glad to have you back, Mike. Round of applause for Mike. We did not in this county lose any more. It was a tie. And now people are tired of that gun confiscating big Beto. They are tired of the things that are going on. And we're tired of the crime. We're tired of the bureaucracy. We're tired of the death and the taxes and the bureaucracy. And it's time for us to be bold and win in November. And give me any one of these guys who's going to get rid of Lena. I love you all. I appreciate it.
So we've asked the candidates to stick around for a little while to, you've got some questions. I know Craig Cummings has got some questions for Commissioner Cagle. I want to ask you a couple of things. One is that putting these together is a lot of work, and let's give Bret Cummings a hand for all of that. Except for 15 of the seats, just go against that wall. Okay, so thank each and every one of you, and we look forward